is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Spawnhour and Theo Ash, here to talk about your Atlanta Falcons. Everyone's been waiting for this, the Falcons episode, and we're also going to talk about the NFC West and the trade deadline. A lot of NFL football to talk about, but we can't go without discussing the elephant in the room. Jonathan Mingo went for a 4th round pick. No, obviously we have to talk about the election results. Not his fault.
Not whose fault?
Not Wall's fault.
There we go. Bruh, it's been a great 24. No, it has not been a great 24 hours. What have you guys been up to cope today? What's been on the agenda?
I went to pottery class. That was fun.
Let's go.
That was cool.
I'm getting a little better. The hard part is, like, first off, you got to center it. That I've got on lock now.
Okay.
Because I'm working on, like, the wheel. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about? But, like, I got to work on sort of, like, my confidence when it comes to building up either the walls of the cylinder or the bowl that I'm making. I'll, like, start and they'll be like, I'm just going to get too thin and fall apart. But it really doesn't matter if it falls apart, right? Because that's how you learn. So I'm starting to make some stuff that's like, okay, you know, it's not, like, good or anything. It's not like, whoa. But it's like, that's a bowl for sure. And it's like a legit bowl.
Yeah. I don't expect to get pottery from Matt for Christmas, but for my birthday, absolutely.
It's not unthinkable. I think I could whip something up by then. It wouldn't be anything crazy. It would mostly be like, what's this regular vase? And then you could be like, actually, okay, Matthew made that for me.
Exactly.
Like,
that would be sick, right? Like,
but it's probably gonna be like another 15 years before I'm making something where you're like, oh shit. But eventually.
Are you going to take pottery classes for 15 years? Is that the end game?
I wouldn't mind it, man. My grandma's a potter. She's goated. I'm trying to get on her level.
It's a shame that men taking pottery classes will be banned soon.
It's a shame Trump is going to smash all my bowls I made today. It sucks, dude.
This is
JD Vance was in Cincinnati and ready to drop him.
We were talking before we started recording about how our editor Manny was telling us there needs to be the liberal Andrew Tate, the liberal Aiden Ross. This is how we start. We got to start spreading like massive misinformation that
we're throwing out Blaiden Kirk as the counterpunch. Don't worry.
We start spreading misinformation that JD Vance wants to ban men's pottery classes.
There's nothing misinformation about it. He's gonna try.
He's gonna try.
Looking at Spawnhour, you're 6'4". Get in the fucking mines, bro.
I know.
All right,
they're gonna make me play like D3 basketball or something, dude. Fuck.
The Bitcoin factory in the Arctic needs coal, man. So
the Bitcoin factory.
Yeah, man.
Matt single-handedly destroying the climate. It really is striking that it's like it's been in the 70s and it's like we're in November.
We actually have a winter storm here in Denver, so climate change.
Okay, so global warming doesn't exist where you're at.
Something must have been fixed in the recent hours.
Climate change, mega real. There's still a limit at which I will not panic about it being like an odd 65 day or whatever, or like a slight warm spell.
It's been like 70 degrees for like a couple weeks now, and it's like,
Dude, the winter fans are like me saying Aiden Hutchinson was a top 5 edge last offseason. Like, maybe they're not right at the time, but like they're going to be.
Gonna be right.
That's what this crap is going to turn into.
So you don't know about prime summer, man. You don't know about.
Okay,
damn,
well,
dude.
Any real election takes, or do you want to just move on?
I mean, I made a TikTok about. I mean, there's a lot of young men that listen to this podcast, I think, and that's kind of the demographic that's starting to shift really to the right after, Gen Z came out for, the Dems last year. And I just think, like, if you are listening to this and you're, a young man, just be aware of the impact Trump has on male culture, and try to combat it with empathy. Recognize that, like, white privilege is a real thing. I said it in my on TikTok, right? Like, every group outside of white men will be harmed by Republican policies, and people are like, what's a single policy? Name one thing. Like, bro, I don't know what to tell you if you don't know at this point. But for maybe if people don't, like, for example, like 95% of senior management positions in the workforce are white men. All right, 95%, and they're 47% of the workforce. So if you have ever, like, aspired to be like a boss or like move upwards in your company, it's kind of just a white thing. All right. And I think people need to realize, like, a lot of people don't realize that because, you're just a white person living your life, going through things, like, not bothering anybody. Like, there's nothing in the Constitution that says, like, white people get to be the boss. Right. Although I do think some stuff about slavery is written in there, and that's where all this comes from, but, yeah, just recognize it, check it, clock it. It doesn't make you a bad person unless you, like, just bury your head in the sand and just,
Yeah, it's just disappointing when somebody can come out and be so vocally, against certain minority groups. The lies about trans people, that they're transitioning people at schools without the parents' knowledge. I mean, it's bizarre because I don't know anybody, and maybe I'm in a bubble. I don't know anybody who, like, believes that. Does anyone think that's true outside of like 70-year-olds? Like, it genuinely, it's because it's such a ridiculous claim. And I just don't know how you could look at that and say, like, he's not trying to stir people up about, or the cats and dogs stuff during the debate.
Oh, yeah.
A ridiculous, cartoonish lie. And I'm not saying, he won exclusively because, how could it like it's not Kamala's fault at all, and there's nothing that Democrats could have done, and I guess everything is just like, that crap. But it's definitely disappointing.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of talk about, like, whose fault it is, and it's like, well, XYZ demographic didn't show up for the Democrats, and it's their fault for not paying attention. But I think to some extent, like, there needs to be a shift in the way the Democrats message.
Yes.
Because they platform so heavily on just like, well, we're not Republicans. But then they also do this thing where they negotiate so much with Republicans. And this is, I think, like, my biggest problem with the Democratic
Republicans.
Party.
Here's Liz Cheney, though.
Right.
Yeah, no.
It's like I don't know. My biggest problem with the Democratic Party is that, like, they will negotiate so much, whereas the Republican Party just doesn't. Like, the one thing that I have to respect the GOP on, they stand on business every time. They do not budge on what they want. They have moved further to the right in my lifetime in the last 10 to 4 whatever years. And the Democrats just give in to them every single time. And I legitimately think they would be better off, and I think a lot of people would agree, if they just went further left. If they just went all in on, this is what we want, we're not budging now. And I think they would have a much better chance.
An uninspiring centrist is not going to be Donald Trump unless especially a woman, right? With all the misogyny, like, Biden can do it when he's not the incumbent, right? Like, and part of it is just Americans are so naive. It's like, there's problems in your life. Let's change the presidential party that's in power, right? And it doesn't actually, like, that's not really the root of the issue here. I 100% believe that you're right, Blaiden. Like, it is, if the Dems want to be really competitive in elections and start to dominate, I think they've got to adopt popular policies that you see pass in, like, red states, and then they will crush the 2022 midterms, right? And then it comes time to elect a president or nominate a president, and they just like kind of botch it. And that's the other thing you got to give the GOP credit for, is like they ran somebody an outsider that people were excited about, right? Like they didn't just run, Newt Gingrich or something, like, I don't know, someone mid. Like they saw the excitement that this person had, and then they were like, he's not conventional, but he's speaking to people, and let's let him run with it. And it's like the Dems just don't have that mentality at all.
I've seen a lot of people say that, like, oh well, that they need to earn my vote, and I think a lot of people straight up did not vote because they felt like neither party earned their vote. And like, I think that's wrong. Like, I think you should vote, but
I think it's more on the campaign to get people to come out. I won't lie. I was thinking, even Biden, like, he ran a lot of what he ran just as like, Trump sucks, let's get him out of there, which can get you a lot of votes. But he also had like ending student loans and things like that, where it's like, hey, maybe this thing and this thing and this thing could happen. Here's some progressive ideas. With Kamala, it's like she was obviously on a short clock. I think she was in a bad position because Biden is just so unpopular and whatnot, and she had such little time to work with. But like, what was she running on, really, truly?
I think the main things that she had were the first-time home buyer assistance. It was like $25K tax credit for that, and then there was a $50K like startup business tax credit. But those don't impact
tax credits. Just aren't gonna
they don't impact
galvanize
those
the base.
Those are still like upper middle class. Those are still upper middle class like policies.
Yeah,
they don't really help working class people that much.
A big problem with like, I know she wanted to legalize marijuana. I think that one kind of like, I agree with it, obviously, and like it's left, but I think a lot of places just already have it, and it's just like kind of far down the totem pole. And then abortion, that's the big one. But the problem is like, she can't even really do anything about abortion.
No, unless she wants to pack the courts, right? There's no Dem that's saying like, hey,
she would have had the opportunity to fill 2 Supreme Court spots. That is the big kicker, is that Trump is going to get to appoint 2 new Supreme Court justices.
I don't think it would have flipped the
It
Supreme
wouldn't have
Court.
flipped, but at least it would. I think they would have at least had a chance. But she couldn't have guaranteed codifying Roe v. Wade.
Yeah,
that's a whole different thing. Yeah.
But it's like tough to run on abortion when it's like Biden was the president who lost it. Like, he was in office and it went away, and Obama had the chance to codify it into law. And it's like, when that's what you're running on, like, now that it's over, it's kind of, too little, too late. Like, the Democratic Party could have protected this a long time ago. And then, of course, it's Israel Palestine. It's the number one thing.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that weren't.
Not budging on that, right? You're sending. The United States is the weapons tap, and the rest of the world, has seen this for what it is, and they have called it what it is. And Netanyahu is wanted by the World Supreme Court for crimes against humanity, right? And there's just no sign of, hey, we're going to send less funds over there at all, right? Biden is the ultimate Zionist president, right? He's said as much. He's proud of it. And then they ask Kamala, like, what are you going to do differently than Biden? And she says, nothing comes to mind. And that's really the killer. That's really the killer. Biden had a 39% approval rate when he dropped out of the race,
in the sub 40s or whatever.
How are you going to say that you should have a 5-hour long answer ready? I don't care that he was your president and you're the VP. I don't care that you hadn't had a lot of time to like put things together on the campaign trail. When you say like, how are you going to differentiate yourself from Biden? You have to have a long ass fucking answer for that. And she just had nothing. She literally had nothing. She said nothing comes to mind. And then like later she said like, I'll put a Republican in my cabinet. It's like, okay, West Wing. Like, this is not what. Yeah, you're going to win Michigan off that, I'm sure. Yeah, whatever. But fuck it, we ball, I guess. Just to look out for, look out for your community, and just the help isn't really going to come from the government. So, you got to look out for each other.
With all of that being said, look out for your sisters and your mothers and your daughters and any other minorities that
trans people. Yeah. The most
any LGBT right plus members,
but
all of them.
Can I hit you with a depressing airstrike on my end in particular?
Oh boy. Yes.
Political ads. I get them all the time. Ohio Senate race, right? I'm still close enough to the river where that's all I see for everything.
Yeah.
JD Vance, Ohio Senator. We need to have a new Senate race in Ohio happening in less than a year. The political ads are not over at all, bro. It's so tough, dude. So,
yeah. I mean, they red across the board. I mean, they crushed it. So
they did.
They won fair and square. But
it was rigged. I saw them rigging the votes.
That's true. I mean, didn't Trump say himself that there was mass voter fraud in Pennsylvania? We should check him on that, right?
I know there were at least 10 to 15,000 Theo Ash write-ins that apparently have not been counted at all.
Dude, I was shocked I was shocked I didn't win. I know I wasn't on the ballot. I just kind of thought people knew to write me in. I thought people knew I had some good ideas, but
there were non-zero odds that any of us could have won.
Yeah, it's all three of us, Matt, Spanauer, and Blaiden.
Well, at least with Blaiden, you know what he's going to do when he gets in office.
I'm going to ban the highways, man.
Ban them? You're tearing those suckers down.
I'm tearing those down, man.
First,
and the Browns are required to win the Super Bowl under my tenure.
This will affect the economy. But, Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by Manscaped, the global leader in men's grooming and lifestyle products. Now, I don't know about you, but there's nothing like that fresh shave feeling, right? I remember once nicking myself with a cheap razor. Let's just say it was memorable for all the wrong reasons, but since switching to Manscaped, my grooming game has leveled up big time. No more worries about nicks, cuts, or irritation. And Manscaped is back with something game-changing. We're introducing the Chairman Pro, the electric foil shaver that brings the barbershop shave right to your home. Whether you're looking for that ultra smooth finish or keeping a sharp 5 o'clock shadow, the Chairman Pro has you covered. So what makes it stand out? First off, it's versatile. It comes with 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads. If you're going for a close shave, you've got the skin-safe 4-blade foil. If you want that polished stubble, switch to the stubble trimmer. Plus, both heads use skin-safe technology, meaning way less irritation and razor burn. A standout feature, Flex Adjust technology, which lets the blades pivot to match the contours of your face. No more awkward angles, even around the neck. And for those final touches, it has a precision lock feature to give you an even tighter shave. Oh, and did I mention it's waterproof? Yep. You can use it in the shower and rinse it easily afterwards. And with a 75-minute runtime and travel lock, this is your ultimate grooming companion at home or on the go. So, go grab the Chairman Pro and take your grooming to the next level. Get 20% off and free shipping with code STAYHOT at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with code STAYHOT at manscaped.com.
There's just something magical about being at a live event, whether it's the energy of a packed stadium, the thrill of a concert, or the laughter at a comedy show. There's truly nothing like it. I remember catching a game last year, one of those last-minute decisions where everything just fell into place. The roar of the crowd, the buzz in the air. It's an experience you just can't replicate anywhere else. And I'm really looking forward to making even more memories this year. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about Game Time, the app that's been a game changer for me. They've had this new feature called Game Time Picks, and trust me, it's a lifesaver. It takes all the hassle out of finding tickets by showing you the best deals on the best seats. So no more endless scrolling or second guessing. Just the other day, I was looking for tickets to an upcoming concert, one I've been dying to see, and I decided to check out Game Time Picks, and let me tell you, the deals they had were unreal. I found a super deal that was just $2 too good to pass up. And within minutes, I had my seats locked in. The app even let me preview the view from my seats before I bought them, so I knew exactly what to expect. But what really impressed me was with how easy the whole process was. The app is super intuitive, and with features like all-in pricing, there were no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you get. Plus, with their lowest price guarantee, I knew I was getting the best possible deal. And if anything happened, like the event got canceled, they got you covered with their flexible customer service policy. So if you're anything like me and you want to take the guesswork out of buying tickets, you've got to check out Game Time. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code BLADENK for $20 off your first purchase. That's, of course, BLAIDENK for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
We want to get into some football.
Anyway, let's talk about some football. We should start with the trade deadline stuff, I imagine. And let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They did a lot. I'm trying to even think about like what the most notable move is.
Mike Williams for a 5th, and then Preston Smith for a 7th. You think Mike Williams is
going to be the biggest one?
He just went for a 5th, I guess. So that's why I said it first.
I guess that's fair. They got a new pass rusher too. Preston Smith, right?
Yeah.
He's a do-it-all guy. He's a coverage guy, really, you know. Yeah, I'll talk about Preston Smith, and then Matt, you take Mike Williams. All right.
Sounds good.
Preston Smith, if you're a Steelers fan, good pickup, I think. He's expensive. Thank you for taking on the contract. From a Packers fan perspective, it is kind of worth it to move on from him. He's not really a scheme fit, and you've got Lucas Van Ness and JJ Enagbare and Brendan Cox and Aaron Mosby behind him that might be able to give you a little bit more pass rushing juice. But Preston Smith is super reliable, super solid, long, strong edge setter in the run game. Someone who is kind of like Packers fans, it's a meme at this point. Like the picture of him split out on Justin Jefferson, right? Like he is a 3-4 outside linebacker. He will be asked to do that. And if he gets put on a receiver like Justin Jefferson, it won't go well. But he is like, there is a reason that people did that with him. He is surprisingly good, kind of popping out in zone coverage. Packers fans wanted it to go away. Halfley comes in, and then he's doing it for sim pressures instead of just like basic, 4-man rushes in the 3-4. So it's going to happen either way, and he's not so bad at it. Like I said, solid run defender. Hasn't been so good rushing the passer this year, but maybe moving out a little bit wider to that outside linebacker spot will help him get some of his juice back, give him a little bit more space to work with. And like the money, like the Packers saved like $18 million or something like that 3 years from now. So it is a substantial chunk of change, but I think the Steelers can kind of take that on because there's just no foreseeable quarterback deal for them that, makes these things an affordable luxury. And of course the Steelers can, cut them at that point, or, there's things they can do to lessen that contract. So just a decent edge pickup, I thought, just a solid all around player, good locker room guy, like a real kind of beacon of positivity, never made any like fuss or noise or anything like that. Kind of a funny Instagram follow. I like his stories just being like, I don't give a fuck about people who, wrong me is kind of what the general sense you get. I still follow him on Instagram, and he's like, low key, once someone turns their back on you, I never look at them the same, is like the typical stuff that he posts.
Oh my God.
Which I just think is funny. But yeah, he's a good dude. He's a good player.
As far as Mike Williams goes, whether or not Williams is completely and totally washed, I feel like you can argue remains to be seen a little bit. I don't think that he's maybe as quick as he once was, but I felt like he hasn't had as many opportunities just like down the sideline as he usually does, because I just think Rodgers a lot of the times isn't looking his way. Now, maybe to some extent that's because Williams isn't winning, but he's a guy, even when he's covered, can catch, can go up and make a play. And the Steelers are an offense, especially with Russell Wilson, that wants to do that a lot. They want to hit guys down the sideline, and to me that feels like Williams' biggest strength. especially considering like their number 2 receiver situation, Van Jefferson, like getting another guy out there who you feel like can make a play in a way that maybe Jefferson isn't as, able to or isn't as talented, I think I know Van Jefferson, my guy, but I'll keep it a buck. I see the vision on this. It doesn't make me think that much differently of Pittsburgh, and I'll be honest, neither of these moves do. Ultimately, what stops me from getting excited about the Steelers, even if they're trying to be like semi-aggressive, is just the fact that with their quarterback situation, their ceiling is incredibly low as a team. It feels like maybe they can go on some grand defensive run, but the AFC is super tough this year. And if they don't get a super high seed, which they could, but if they don't, like, they could end up needing to play like 2 of like the Ravens, the Bills, and the Chiefs. And it just feels like one of those teams is going to be able to outduel them. I mean, can you imagine like a current Russell Wilson in like the Super Bowl or even the AFC Championship game? For me, it's tough just with how limited their offense is, even if Wilson is an upgrade from Fields and even if the defense is great. I don't hate the move, though. I don't hate the aggression. I think they're good enough, and the NFL is the NFL, where fine, give it a shot. But at the same time, the Panthers are a team that also wanted to be aggressive. They were far worse, but it was always frustrating when they made all-in moves when they weren't really in a position to, and even though it was with day 3 picks, that eventually added up, and they were constantly behind the 8 ball in terms of like taking shots on day 3, which is something that you can easily explain away and say, that's not that big of a deal, and it isn't. But at the same time, great teams are doing the opposite of it constantly. You see the 49ers and the Rams and all sorts of squads. They were the Ravens. They want to get comp picks, and they want to get day 3 picks. Now, to be honest, I don't know how many the Steelers have. Maybe they have an abundance. And I'll admit, like, there's a big difference between trading like your 4th and your 7th. I know they gave up a 5th for Mike Williams. I think there's like a real gap there. But I don't know. Like, it's minor enough where I think it's fine. And they have a nice win-loss record right now. Like, they're in position, so to some extent, it's cool.
Yeah, it's very much a net neutral, I feel like, especially with Williams. It's like, you could have done this, you could have not done this. I feel about the same. He has won the majority of his contested opportunities this year. PFF has him as like 5 for 7 in contested catch situations. Like, okay, that's cool. But when you look at the numbers as a whole, it's really no different than Van Jefferson's numbers. So it's like, is he even cracking your receiving core like confidently right now? Or are you just giving a 5th round pickup for that?
True.
And same thing with Preston Smith to some extent. It's like, you got Bond, you got Highsmith, you got TJ Watt. Like, how much is he really going to see the field? I think they got 2 players who are, good at certain stuff and kind of fill out the bottom of the starting lineup. And I think it's fine because they are 6-2. And it's like, what else are you going to do with your time? I think you might as well like see what you can do this year. The AFC is strong, but it's also not as strong as we thought going into the year. And I'd like to see a Tomlin double magic playoff run. We've seen so many double magic regular season runs, like maybe with the special teams and the defense and the decent quarterback, the decent offensive situation so far this year, they can actually make a little bit of noise. So I kind of liked him loading up, but also at the same time, I thought it was like just kind of a C move,
They've got a 4th, a 5th, and 3 7ths. All right, that's about equal anyway. It's not a big deal. I don't want to make that out to be like the Steelers are done. It's over. Who it is over for, though, who traded day 3 picks and who got cooked, who got fleeced, maybe? The Dallas Cowboys by the good old Carolina Panthers. A 4th for Jonathan Mingo and a 7th.
What are they doing?
This is an incredibly classic case of low risk, high reward trade that in reality I just don't think is that good. I think these types of shots in the dark, even if they're not for much, aren't good value. Jonathan Mingo is a guy who was formerly a pretty high draft pick. I think he went like 38th, 39th, so like a high second rounder. Yeah. And Mingo also was a guy who had great testing numbers, great athlete, right? Like 40-inch vertical, stuff like that. But he is just not like a guy with, I think, an NFL receiver skill set, truthfully. He's not somebody who wins outside. He's not somebody who can set people up and get in and out of his breaks so quick that he's winning routes consistently. And his abilities to play the ball in the air, which I honestly thought he had some good highlights back in college. This year, or the last couple of years, has just been pretty weak. There's that famous play on the sideline where it looked like he was almost trying to be out of bounds, if you know what I'm talking about, which I see all the time. And I know it's been a year and a half since the Panthers drafted him, and it's the Panthers, so maybe he's stuck in a bad situation. But here's the reality, dude. Even though he is on Carolina, you can't explain away his lack of production because he's not even playing at this point. For a receiving core that doesn't have Deontay Johnson anymore, doesn't have Adam Thielen right now, and he's gotten beaten out by an undrafted free agent from Holy Cross. Now, Jalen Coker's good. But for Mingo to be completely out of the offense in a year and a half as a guy with his type of capital, I think tells a lot of the story. And while, yeah, he's athletic, and yeah, like if you can get the ball in his hands, maybe he's the type of dude who can make plays and you just want to manufacture touches for him. Guys like that are really not that rare, and you shouldn't be spending 4th-round draft picks to acquire them. I heard that the Cowboys really liked him out of the draft. I think you have to trust what you see in the NFL over your evaluation from a year and a half ago. And I think this is a mistake of the trade for Dallas. I do. And I'm not a fan of it. I think they traded for a player who isn't good, to put it simply.
And what are they going to do with him? That's my question. Maybe he's Deebo Samuel and the Panthers just didn't unlock him. Deebo Samuel is not going to get used like Deebo Samuel in Dallas. They're a spread offense. They need someone outside of CeeDee Lamb who can separate on the boundary. Like, that's the guy they need. Mingo's the opposite of that. He was a fullback tight end hybrid coming out of Ole Miss. They don't need they got a fullback. They got a tight end. All right. They don't need this. They don't need this guy.
It is funny. Cowboys are one of the teams that like actually has a guy like that. They've got that guy.
Yeah, and then Dak is going on IR, so the season's over. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing giving up draft picks?
Well, the thing about him is that he's still on a rookie contract for another 2.5 years. So the idea there is that it's a long-term play, and that's why he got traded for more than a guy like Deontay Johnson. But people trying to explain that away to me, like, oh, well, it's because of the contract. It doesn't matter. He could be on contract for. Okay, I'm not going to be a dick. Deontay Johnson is just a better player.
Yeah.
I'd rather have Deontay Johnson for half a year.
I'd rather have DeAndre Hopkins on his contract than Mingo on his contract. And Mingo got traded for more capital. Just crazy. So
people think about this too much, like Madden. It's like, well, D-Hop's an 80, 84, 85 overall, and Mingo's like a 72. But the contract difference, it like balanced.
He's got the superstar development trait, bro. Like,
he's got the hidden development trait. It's like, no, dude, he's just a bad receiver that got traded for a 4th-round pick. Like, that is the way to look at it.
If you want a guy like this, like why didn't you sign Laviska Shenault or something like that for like close to a minimum? I'm not even being like, that's the type of move that you can make. You can pick up these type of guys,
dude.
in free agency.
Laquan Treadwell is just sitting there. Like, go grab him, man.
I mean, I bet that Laquan Treadwell has a higher yards per route run in his career than Mingo has. 0.74 for Mingo. It's just a bad number to be at. It's not a smart trade from Jerry Jones. It just reeks of like the media's killing us, and we gotta make a deal for a wide receiver. And then they call around the league, and all the wide receivers have been traded already. So then they're like, well, who did we have up high in that 2023 draft? And then they're like, oh, he fell out of favor, and then they trade for him, and it's like, well, have you watched the last 2 years? Like, this is not.
No, absolutely. And I think it's a great example of part of the problem with Dallas necessarily is like, it's them trusting their evaluation over like trying to have a good process. Like, our game plan is just, we're going to out evaluate everybody in the draft, and that's how we'll win. Not like a reliable way to get it done. You want to do your best to evaluate guys, but if you don't get somebody and they're bad, you got to trust that they're bad. And making trades like this are probably the most popular NFL move that is, like, to me, obviously bad process. They never work. Again, Mingo really is a good athlete. Maybe, like, this is the time, but dude, it's been brutal. I mean, it's been about as bad as it can be. For Carolina, it's a bummer that it's not worked out this quickly, but we don't care. Last administration, current administration, goated. We can still stick by that, and I like this trade a lot.
Clip that.
Edit it if I'm wrong.
Clip that.
Deep fake me if it's not true.
Current administration coded. Last administration fraud. There was I was going to talk about.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about the presidential stuff. That's all right. I thought you were saying, like, I'll be wrong about the Panthers.
No, I'm just
Context of
I'm
that
just
is
goofing.
so funny.
No, you're just fucking with me. It's cool.
Speaking of
ahead.
Washington, they made an actual substantial move. They traded for Marshawn Lattimore.
I don't know how we didn't start. We gave the Mingo speech before we talked about the Lattimore
And
trade.
the Steelers. We let them. All good things come to those who wait. I was proud of the Saints, honestly. Like, you don't give them a huge extension. That's a step in the right direction.
I absolutely agree. Get my glorious Buckeyes out of that organization immediately is my takeaway. No, I'll say this with New Orleans. I think they have, as a Panthers fan, I think they have devil magic. I think that shit works out for them when it should not. And I think if they chose to, like, bite the bullet now, they would probably get a very high pick right around the time you want to get a very high pick. I don't think their path forward has to be incredibly bleak. Probably not going to be a very good team next year. But honestly, for a team that doesn't have a quarterback, which there's a good number of them, do you really even want to be at this point? Even if the Saints kept doing the thing that they were doing, like, it just felt like their ceiling at some point was going to fall off. It's to an extent, and this hasn't really ended up being true, but to an extent, a lot of their strategy was based around the NFC South sucking. That's really not that cool long term. It's cool for, like, the Buccaneers, because they're coming off a Super Bowl win and they're, like, supposed to completely tank and fall apart as everybody gets too expensive. So them being, like, a solid, competitive, feisty team that probably isn't going to win at all is totally fine. Like, the fans are already satisfied and they're fun to watch, and that's cool. But New Orleans, it's been a lot longer. And the idea is, like,
they're coming off a Super Bowl win too. It happened just a few years ago, back in 2009.
a few years ago. But you understand what I'm like.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think there's very few Saints fans at this point that even want to keep the band together, from what I've seen. I mean, maybe there's people who are like, we can just keep restructuring. And I'll say this. New Orleans would probably be better than they are right now if they weren't so injured. However, they still would not be a team with a high ceiling, and their path to being a team with the high ceiling would be, like, comparable to the Cowboys, where they just have to, like, totally nail another draft. And that is something that you could say about, like, so many teams that I don't think have great direction right now. So I think
are the Saints the Democrats of the NFL?
in
A lot
some
of money
ways,
to not win anything.
in some ways, I can see the vision there. So I think them trading Lattimore is a good move, and seemed like, I mean, honestly, their backs are just against the wall in terms of, like, what exactly they were going to be able to do. They only have so many restructures left. Are they going to count on someone retiring, or are they going to, like, just start cutting guys straight up and then, like, post June 1st them so it's split up 50-50 and they save money on dudes who still have a bunch of guaranteed cash that they can't, like, straight up cut and save money? You just don't want to get in that situation. Trade Lattimore instead. Get your third.
Yep.
And then if you're the Commanders,
Dude.
More importantly, if you're the Commanders, I think they needed corner help. I think Lattimore is a really good player. And I think they're absolutely in a position to be aggressive right now with how good they are. And I'll say this. I love this move because the NFC is wide open. I don't know if the Commanders defense, like, quite still has the horses for me to, like, buy into a full playoff run. but they're crushing it now. Their offense is awesome, and them trying to get the horses makes sense. Plus, Lattimore is a good enough player where it's not like, well, this year bust. So
Right.
I think for a third, it's a totally reasonable price, and I don't mind them being aggressive. If it doesn't work out, it's not Armageddon.
Well,
And if it does, and
it's what, a third, a fourth, and a sixth.
Yes, that's exactly right. And then they get a fifth back.
okay, I thought it was just a third and a sixth for a fifth. I won't lie.
No, they got
It's
a
a
fourth
lot
in
of-
there too.
It's a lot of capital. I guess I'd have to
But if
go
you
look at
wanted
how
to get
many.
a corner of Lattimore's caliber, you would probably end up having to draft one in the first round anyway. So I think it is a good move. You know, short term, long term. Like you said, they don't have to win the Super Bowl this year, but your quarterback looks good. He's young, and now you're just trying to fill out the defense a little bit.
They still have a good number of
At this
picks.
point, you
I think
failed at it in the draft.
cornerback is a position, especially for somebody who's kind of proven, I think is a good move to make in terms of a trade, because there's a lot of years it feels like where there's just not much in free agency. And again, this team is 7-2. They lead the NFC East. Like, there's no reason why, if you're in that building, you shouldn't be thinking, let's get better and try to make a run. You know,
Yeah,
your window is always shorter than you think. Go for it. I still like it.
Yeah, I like it too. The Eagles are coming to town in 2 weeks. They've got AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, and they're going to cook you if you don't have Lattimore out there. They just are. So Lattimore has been inconsistent over the course of his career. He's been injury prone. I mean, there is a chance that it collapses and like it doesn't do anything this year. And then you're like sitting there and you're like, damn, I wish we had those 2 draft picks in rounds 3 and 4. Like, it's certainly a risk, but I think it's a risk worth running when you're competing for the Eagles for the lead in the division, the possibility to be the number 2 seed in the NFC or even the number 1 seed, right? Like, it wouldn't surprise me at this point. This team is absolutely rolling. They badly need corner help. They were aggressive.
And that's part of it. It changes the entire calculation for them on defense, and that's why it's worth the risk. Because otherwise, it was one of those positions that was such a big problem where it's like you can't really even imagine a world where it doesn't just cost them hugely against somebody. Now it's like, yeah, you can. I think that's worth a third and a fourth in money. I do.
Yeah,
I do too. They average 9 yards per wide receiver target the last 2 years. That's the worst mark in the league. You can't be giving up a first down every time Jalen Hurts throws the football out wide. Like, you just can't.
Nope.
And Lattimore's having a decent season. Not the greatest run support corner ever, I'd say. And like I said, a bit inconsistent, but like he knows what he's doing.
they're
He's
the-
a play man. And
He's
Are they
definitely
the
better
1
than
seed right
any
now in the
corner they
entire
have out
NFC? No, the Lions are just
Yeah.
They're
They're the 2
fighting
seed.
for a bye though, and they're half game back. And you do have to keep perspective here. Washington has not been good since. I mean, they had that year where they snuck in the playoffs, but they haven't been this good since RG3 at least, and arguably they're better than then, honestly. And before that, I mean, it's been rare in my life that Washington's been good. So I think to say like, yeah, but you need to be more cautious, screw that, dude. I mean,
Oh yeah.
for a lot of teams, seasons like this don't always come around. A 3rd round pick, screw it. If anything, like, it just gives you the fan base more excitement about what the team can do, and like their ceiling being higher is something that gives you energy for the entire year. So I'm a fan of it.
Screw it.
Also, speaking of the Lions, though, the other team competing at the top of the NFC traded for Zadarius Smith. They did it.
We squawked about this.
We did. At this point, like,
And we talked about the possibility of it happening.
No, we talked about the possibility of it, is what I mean. Not that we
Yeah,
already talked
okay,
about it and
yeah,
you
yeah,
forgot it in the last 15 minutes.
how are you feeling about it, Blaiden?
I mean, he will be missed in Cleveland. I honestly wish we would have gotten a little bit more. I get that, like, he's kind of an aging guy on an expiring contract, but he was the Browns sack leader up until the Chargers game when Garrett went nuclear. And he's been having a pretty good year. I think he's got like just shy of 30 pressures, 5 sacks. To only get a 5th this year and a 6th next year. And, you know, we're also sending a 7th next year. I just wish we would have gotten a little bit more in return, but I understand why the Browns were willing to trade him. And obviously, like, the Lions, they need a pass rusher. And I mean, that's great value for them, I think. But for what the Browns gave up, I honestly would have rather have just kept him because he was playing well this year.
Fair enough. And then Trey White went to the Ravens. He's been banged up as per usual this season and a little bit slow. So I didn't know. I thought that was kind of
they
like
gave
a
up like
strange
literally
move.
nothing.
Really
Yeah.
me.
So I don't know how to grade that one. I guess also a C.
You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're really a heat seeker, try spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. I dare ya. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's gotta be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's locations.
Let's move on to the second part of our agenda here.
There's one more trade, actually.
What am I forgetting?
Baron Browning to the Cardinals.
That's right.
Well, wait,
I like that.
That fits in well with our NFC East conversation.
NFC.
It does
NFC
fit in
West.
well with our NFC West conversation.
Right.
We should start with the Cardinals, not only because they're in first place, not only because they start with A, but it makes a beautiful transition. And Baron Browning, I think he has some juice off the edges as sort of like he's had good seasons before, and the Cardinals pass rush has been bad this year. And you're another team like that's a cheap move to make to see how it can work. I think he's put together enough where I see the 6th round pick and maybe it didn't work out with them, but I can see the vision here a little bit.
Yeah.
And also I'd love to shout out Jonathan Cooper again. I think part of that was Cooper getting his big contract.
Yeah.
Did you see? 4 years, I think $55 million. Shout out to GOAT.
Man. I'm so hyped for the guy.
Get
Hannah grown. That rocks.
Can I hold a buck?
If anything, Matt and I are getting a buck before you.
Yeah, we don't know you, little man. It's cool though.
We. Yeah, I think if we're talking about we're talking about the NFC West here, and just kind of it's such a close race right now from top to bottom. The Cardinals are leading it at what are they 5-4?
I think they're 5-4.
I should just have this, but yeah, they're 5-4, and then the Rams are 4-4, the 49ers are 4-4, and the Seahawks are 4-5. So the Cardinals are in good position right now. It's just their big weakness is the pass rush. Outside of the Bears game, they were, the bottom tier pass rush in the league, completely reliant on cover 0 to get pressure. On third downs, they call it over 10% of the time. That's the highest mark in the league. Just third down, we're not going to rush 4. We need to get off the field. Let's just send the house. It's a tough way to live when your corners are also young. Max Melton is a rookie. I like Starling Thomas, the 5th, a lot. I think that he's an underrated player in the league. But again, physicality for these guys, knowing exactly the route concepts all the time. They're a little bit tough on that on defense. So to help out the pass rush any way that you can is a valid thing to do. And to buy at the deadline is a valid thing to do when you're them. Yeah, it's the defense is getting better. It's not quite in that tier by itself at the bottom like it was last year. They still, I think, allow too many easy completions, and like I said, reliant on the blitz on third down. But I'm happy with where they're at right now. I do think they're feisty. I do think they have a chance to win this division.
I thought early in the year their defense didn't look very good for a lot of it, and we had them as a tier 4 team. I mean, they looked really dead in the water, and I think offensively things have Kyler's just been balling out, and the defense, when Gannon got there, the talent deficit was huge. We knew that. So it being a process is not surprising, but the way they've turned around their season, I think is fantastic. And a lot of it is due to Kyler. A lot of it's due to, the weapons that they've got there. The run game's been good. Their offensive line, honestly, has been pretty strong. Paris Campbell is having a great season. I think there's a lot of positive signs there. And I'm also very willing to be positive on them because they're a very pro-Buckeye team right now.
They're a team that I have to be careful not to overrate them. I feel like just because I love what they're doing so much. I love teams that are just kind of different and off the wall from what the rest of the league is doing. And that's totally the Cardinals right now. 13 personnel on the field constantly. My boy Tip Ryman out there blocking. James Conner has broken like more tackles in the last 3 weeks than Zeke Elliott did in like all of 2016 is some stat I saw on Twitter. Like, I don't know why Zeke caught a stray on that tweet, but it was still, I think it was just, highlighting just how many tackles Connor has broken in a short amount of time here. Like,
Theo is feeling nicey right now.
Leaning on, just getting in heavy and leaning on the run game and letting Kyler take shots. It's cool. And then the defense, like, it may be lacking a little bit of talent, but it is fun to watch. Like, they will come out in a penny front, right, with a bare front with one linebacker behind it, and then a 2-high shell behind that. So you get the 2-high, where you can bracket some of these receivers and quarters to the inside or cover to the outside, and you get all the interior gaps filled with the bare front. And then they whip out the crazy rotations, and there's 3 high safeties that spin up to 1 or whatever it is that they're doing. It's so funny that Gannon was at one point considered, and it validly considered, the most vanilla, bland, coordinator in the league when he was at the Eagles, to now he's doing just bonkers shit that no one else is willing to do. And I appreciate that a lot. Maybe the talent will catch up to them and like the 49ers will catch up to them. Like, I want to be sensitive to that, but it is a cool scheme and they've got some really cool players. And I do think that I was excited about them going into this year and they've justified that. I think that they're contenders for this division.
I think absolutely. I mean, you're halfway through the season and they lead. Certainly, I agree. Things could start breaking against them at some point, and Kyler could have a weaker back half of the season, like we've seen sometimes. He's a little gamey, and that creates a lot of high-low play. And maybe teams, are more and more expecting their cover 0, and you just get some guys who can beat that consistently. But at the same time, like, I don't know, man. I don't think I'd be that. They still play the Patriots and the Panthers. Like, they got some wins on their schedule, you'd think. And to get it in this division, it could be like 10 that you need to hit. I'm definitely high. Like, maybe they don't win the division in the end, but they're definitely better than I thought they were a month ago.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Do you want to move on then to the 49ers after that, or we want to move on to the Seahawks?
And we can just go in order. Who's second?
Let's go with it's the Rams. I think it's the Rams.
All right. LA Rams. Well, Stafford.
The Rams' big strength is that Stafford is fantastic. I mean, I didn't catch all of the Seahawks game, but the parts that I did, he's absolutely balling. I think he's up there in like the first or second tier of quarterbacks, in the sense that like he's Herbert or Burrow level, just about. And combine that with the weapons that they've got when they're healthy, it's pretty lethal. I feel like they exist somewhere in between, like being a trap team and being a serious contender, because their offensive line is pretty darn weak and pretty darn, like, banged up all the time, and they're kind of trying to makeshift things together. So it definitely makes you feel like that at some point is going to cost them. It's a really weak unit. And there's some defensive talent issues that are definitely there as well. But they can go and beat anybody in a way that feels like, I mean, even the best team should absolutely be scared of them. And it's not only because of Stafford in the passing game, to be fair. Their defensive line performance this season has been fantastic.
They really did.
Jared Verse is a beast.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were able to get this play after losing Aaron Donald's ridiculous. Verse is just incredibly powerful. He's just ridiculously strong. It's superpower level, truly. And they have a lot of, I feel like, a lot of creativity. Like, they're running a lot of stunts around there. And with some of the speed that they've got, it makes them lethal, man.
They actually did it. Go ahead, Blaiden.
Well, I was going to say, I think this was like the true vision for the Rams defensive line, is you bring in a bunch of guys that are really good at one thing. Like, they each have their own trick, and then they just maximize that trick to the fullest extent. I think the craziest thing is that not only is this defense performing well without Aaron Donald, but they are also performing well without Raheem Morris. They lost both of those guys this offseason, and they are doing arguably just as well. I mean, it's really remarkable. I'm trying to remember who their current defensive coordinator is right now. Chris Shula.
Right.
You got to give him. I feel like he needs some credit for what
Definitely.
for what he's put together this year.
Definitely. I mean, I didn't love the verse and Fisk picks coming out of the draft, but they've done it. Like they've actually replaced Aaron Donald in the aggregate, like they said they would, and it's crazy. And then you combine that kind of battery to the defense, that defensive line being your engine, to an offense that is so dangerous through the air. I mean, you can never count Stafford out, man, and Kupp and Puka and Robinson even, right? And then you got Whittington. It's just a deep group of pass catchers that are all reliable. McVay scheming them up. I've said it many times before, but you get a guy like McVay, and I think he's like a modern day, Peyton Manning type figure, right? He's just that guy who is constantly in the championship game in his conference. Him, LaFleur, and Shanahan are in it 75% of the time recently. To have a weapon like that on your coaching staff, it just cannot be understated. Although I am worried about their run game more than like the Cardinals, I'll say. Like Kyron Williams just has not really been able to get going outside of the red zone this year. And then I am still worried about like their linebackers in secondary.
Yeah.
I do prefer the Cardinals to them slightly.
I don't think I can quite get behind that. I won't lie.
Okay.
I think the Rams, they're not very waterproof, I'll say. They've got their problems, but they can get anybody on either side of the ball. The pass rush and a great passing attack is like, it makes you competitive with everybody. And I think if the Rams, this is a little bit of a cop-out, injuries happen to everybody. I do think if the Rams did not get so down on receiver early in the year, they could be on top. And also it's a half a game difference, right? Like they could also just win their next game and then they'd be right on pace with the Cardinals. So sure. I think I like them just a little bit more, but it's certainly close.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Rams are good.
Blaiden.
I don't disagree with you, Matt. So that brings us to San Francisco then, who they're sitting here at what, 4-4? McCaffrey's returned to practice, man. If they get him back, I like this team a lot. If they get McCaffrey back. They're really scary if he's in the fold.
Yeah, it's tough to make a call on them because it just wasn't that long ago that they got beat pretty bad by the Chiefs, right? And Brandon Ayuk goes out for the year, but then they beat the Cowboys. And then how impressive is that really? You got to debate that in your head.
They beat the Cowboys by 6.
And then it's their bye, and then they get McCaffrey back. So it's like, what exactly are they going to look like in the back half of their schedule? I don't think the importance of McCaffrey could be overstated in the first half of the year. I mean, it is the biggest reason that they're 4-4. It's something I kept pounding the table about. They're seeing less and less cover 3 middle of the field coverage this year. Teams when McCaffrey is in, teams are scared to leave their safety high and put McCaffrey on a linebacker. They want that safety down in the box, and that makes defenses predictable for Shanahan, and he can hit that money shot right between the two hook defenders in that cover 3 or whatever he wants to do. When you get quarters, it killed them a little bit versus the Patriots, I thought, and versus the Vikings. You get kind of extra pair of eyes on all those crossers, leveraging it. I really thought, like, scheme-wise, they were missing the lack of McCaffrey, and maybe with him back and Debo, getting healthier, maybe Shanahan can find some of the old magic, and maybe a wide receiver can step up in place of Ayuk.
Jennings has not had a bad year.
True. Yeah. Jennings.
They're not going to be super strong at receiver. I don't think that means like the 49ers suck. I think a little bit of this, I hate to pull this card, a little bit of it is expectations versus reality. Cardinals go 5-4. It's great. 49ers are around there. They're supposed to win the Super Bowl. It's different. And when we think about the Ayuk injury, we think about how that hurts them in terms of like them being the team that wins the Super Bowl. Everything else would be a disappointment for the 49ers, right? Definitely hurts their odds. Definitely makes me feel worse about about them, like in that respect. In terms of winning this division, it's not as much of a death blow because you don't have to be a perfect team to win this division in the way that maybe you feel like you do to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad way to put it.
My concern about them the most is like, I think McCaffrey will come back and it'll help, but could the lack of Ayuk really just offset that? I mean, they are third this year in the rate that opponents are playing man coverage against them, and they rank, let's see, they rank 18th in coverage EPA per play, and that's with Ayuk for playing most of it. I mean, they don't really have a man coverage separator outside of him, and I'm still very concerned about that, along with the weaknesses on the offensive line. Like, if they need to batten down the hatches and win a bunch of games here down the back stretch, like they do, it's just not the same 49ers team, even with McCaffrey coming back. It's just not to the level that we've seen in the past, I feel like. So I do think they can. Do I prefer them over the Cardinals? I think I do. I think I do.
I do.
But I think they're just as human as the other teams in this division.
I think that's fair to say. I think it's like
Nick Bosa,
no, there's paths to like the 49ers not like just turning this thing around wildly, like maybe they have a couple times in the past, right, where they've started a little slow and then heated up. Like you can see real problems, and the Super Bowl odds, like them being like this, is what makes me feel like the NFC is so wide open right now. Like anybody could take it. I guess the Lions are great, but the Hutchinson trade makes me feel like they're not injury makes me feel like they're just not quite like the level of dominant where I'm like it's them versus everybody. But still, they've been pretty good this year without them. That being said, I do think if I had to pick, like I'd pick them. They're not really working from majorly behind here. Again, they're only a half game back, right, on the Cardinals. So it's basically dead even still. I think their run game is still going to be fantastic when McCaffrey comes back. They will take a step. And defensively, they haven't been amazing this year, but they still do have two superstars that the other teams in this conference just can't compete with, and that's Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, of course. So I'm sticking with the old guard here. It'll be close. It's not like they're going to run away with it, but I do think they'd still be my pick. I still think they're kind of the most complete team.
Yeah, I would agree. I would take them and the Rams.
And with the most maybe true superstars on their team as well right now of anybody here. And Shanahan's got a great track record as a coach as well and can get creative.
Hey, they got Nick Bosa, but the Cardinals got Buda Baker, man.
True.
Buda
Baker's
Baker,
a baller.
a real star.
And the Seahawks have Geno Smith.
That's right. What about the Seahawks, man? Our Seahawks prediction isn't looking too hot, Blaiden.
I know. The Seahawks and the Colts, they're letting me down.
They're 4-5. It ain't over.
It's not over.
The leader of the division is 5-4.
This was supposed to be the team of destiny, you know? Like,
I think this is anybody.
What did they start? Did they start 3-0? Like, it's been a rough go of it for us Seahawks lovers here.
That's true. That's true. They did start 3-0. I mean, look, their problem is like their offensive line is not that great.
Not that great. Not that
stinks. But like at the same, Charles Cross is a baller, but there's 4 other whole positions, and it just makes like their run game too hit. Like Ken Walker, I'll give you your flowers on that one, man. He's a beast, but that's not what creates a consistent run game, unfortunately. And honestly, I think asking Geno to play superhero all the time can lead to like some tough offensive moments for them too. There's never going to be consistency on an offense with an offensive line that's playing like Seattle's. And that's why I feel like they're so up and down. And then defensively, their defensive line, I just don't think has performed. I was looking around to just see what Seahawks fans are saying, and I agree with this. Like, based off what they're paying for their defensive line, it hasn't performed up to snuff at all this year. And on top of that, like, outside of Witherspoon, I just where like the game breakers on the defense, they don't exist there.
The Seahawks are 4-5, but I feel like when I talk about them, I feel like I did it during the election at about maybe 10:30 last night, where it's like, it's not over, but all the signifiers are kind of making it seem like it's going in the wrong direction.
Right.
Dude, this is exactly where Biden was. Okay.
Fuck.
Biden was 4-5.
Biden was 4-5. Damn it.
Biden was.
I mean, the Rams loss was tough.
Biden was 4-4, maybe. I don't know. There's just too many things to cope about in this team. Like, we can get some good Geno, not his fault ball from this point going forward. Like, I still think he's a really good quarterback, honestly. And but like Tariq Woolen, for example, every single week that guy gets pushed around. In the running game, he gets pushed around. He didn't like box out on an obvious interception. Like, he didn't close towards the ball, and then the wide receiver ran in front of him and caught it instead. Like, these plays happen all the time with him these last 2 years. And so it's like, he's not really that much of a positive corner at this point. The linebackers aren't really much of a positive at this point. They can't defend the play action. The defensive line, the defensive line is fine when they're healthy, I guess. But like you said, Matt, like, not as much as I was expecting. And then overall, the defense just can't get lined up correctly, and they can't blitz like a Mike McDonald team. Like, their blitzes aren't landing at all. It's just not good. And it's just way too late in the season to make those kinds of errors on the defense. Like, it just looks nothing like the Ravens last year at all. Nothing like them. And so when you've got a defense that looks nothing like it was supposed to look, and you've got an offense with an offensive line that is sailing snaps over your quarterback's heads and can't block anybody, like, it just, I mean, we got JSN. That's like, that initial Philadelphia poll when it kind of, it's the JSN 180-yard game.
That's it. That's all we've got.
JSN is
right.
JSN is Atlanta.
I agree. I think they're a little ways away here. That's all.
Yeah,
I think this was more than a 1-year rebuild, even though they have a lot of talent.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't think they're like totally out of it or anything, but I certainly think like the high end.
Here's how Bernie can still win.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, I don't think they're out of it in terms of like, if they finish with like 9 wins, like, that wouldn't shock me like at all.
No, I guess not.
They've got like good weapons, and Geno can cook, and like if he gets hot, and like you see the vision, and they're not like they're not like a disaster on defense because like everybody sucks. Like, they just feel like they don't have like.
They don't get lined up right, dude. They don't it starts with even something as simple as that. It's just like, if you could just line up right sometimes, like, it could work. And it's like, it's the errors like that plague them.
Yeah. But they're not my favorite in the division right now. It is anybody's game, though. I mean, like, dude, they're 4-5. They're not that far off. I know I'm kind of waffling here, but seriously.
No, I mean, that's why we chose to talk about it, is just because it is such a close race here. But I would go in terms of
like go ahead.
Just how I expect it to turn out at the end. I would say, like, dude, I don't know. I hate to put the Rams at third.
You've got to put somebody at fourth, is what's killer about
Seahawks. It. I'm there. I'm putting the Seahawks number 4.
Wow.
But it just feels like the Rams are good, but they lack a little bit of offensive balance that I feel like the Cardinals.
That's very true.
And the defenses are about the same. Like, even with the pass rush kind of breaking out for the Rams, like, when you look at their defensive numbers next to the Cardinals, it all looks about the same to me. So I think I'm going to go 49ers, Cardinals, Rams, Seahawks. But Lord, I really do like the top 3 teams there. And then
now you've given up on the Seahawks, your team.
I have given up. I'm out.
And this is where the run starts, Breda.
I hope so. I want to see Geno win. I want to.
It's tough. It's tough to say. I would go 49ers, Rams. And then I don't know what to do with the Seahawks and Cardinals.
First place team and last. Cardinals fans, drop in the comments what your opinion is on that. I'm gonna go with Theo's order, but I'm flipping the Rams and the Cardinals. I think that Stafford is another tier above Kyler. No disrespect.
I agree.
And I think McVay is the GOAT. And
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, I think that makes up for the lack of offensive balance. That's what I'm saying.
That's what he's saying.
What are you doing, Blaiden? Come on, you got to give us the 4.
I'll go. I'll be different. I'll put the Cardinals at 4. I'll trust in Seattle.
They can't say you're not different.
They can't.
You had them as a tier 4 team.
No,
But
they
you
are
didn't
gonna
actually.
say-
You were the guy who was like hyping them up, and now look how you've turned on them just to try to save Seattle.
Yeah, just to try and save face for Seattle, man. I got to though. I got to. Someone has to.
That does bring us to the last thing that we wanted to talk about: the Atlanta Falcons.
It's been a long time coming. I know everyone's upset that we've been ignoring them on recent episodes, but I don't think we have been ignoring them as much as
They've not only been winning, which is a narrative change from where they were earlier in the year, which we talked about, but they've been playing like good games that we could have been watching beforehand. There's just a lot of games, guys. Like truthfully and honestly,
yeah.
I have nothing against the Falcons, even as a Panthers fan. I don't hate your team, guys. I swear. If it was the Saints and we weren't talking about it, yeah, that would be me.
Yeah, if we could avoid talking about the Steelers, I would be a happy guy.
Theo, you put some questions in the group chat for us to answer, and I think we should go through them about the Falcons. Obviously, I think right now they're the best team in the NFC South, clearly. They've been playing at a great level, and a lot of that comes down to Kirk Cousins turning it around after a really bad game 1, and I feel like not that much better of a game 2. It was like, okay, Kirk might be so injured off this Achilles that it's just like this isn't going to work at all. Eventually, though, and honestly it didn't take that long, he worked his way back from it and now looks a lot like his old self. And because of that, I think his contract right now is really good. Like to get a quarterback playing at his level for what they did, it's a game changer for him.
Yeah.
On top of that, I think a lot of things in the offense are clicking. Bijan's maybe not having like the totally insane year that I was hoping, but he's playing good ball. They're running the ball pretty effectively. Drake London's good. Pitts has had some moments. Like overall, the offense has taken a big step from where it was the last few seasons when it was just inept because their quarterback play just wasn't very good, straight up. And then defensively, I feel like they haven't been quite the pushover that maybe we could have seen with their talent level. So you asked, should there be any accolade hype for this Arizona team?
Atlanta
I think that
too,
Kirk.
but yes.
Oh, Atlanta, my fault. I misspoke. I think Kirk Cousins is like definitely going to win comeback player of the year at the minimum. I don't know if that's what you were imagining, but like if he keeps doing this, he's got it.
Yeah, I was thinking like, could you sneak him into the MVP conversation?
How much better would he have to start? Would he have to like really be playing?
The thing is, like, as good as like he's been a top 10 quarterback this year, results wise. I think especially after the bad week 1 game. But the problem is with that, I guess, is he's still like half as good as Lamar Jackson is. So it's kind of tough to elevate him into a conversation, even though
he's what, 4th in passing yards.
I'll say this. I see the vision. There's only so many quarterbacks who are playing good ball on a good team, and a lot of it is because of them. He's just like not as good as Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen.
Yeah.
He's a guy where the most you can say is should he be in the conversation, not should he actually be the MVP.
Yeah, guys like Goff and Jaden as well are just a little bit above him and still on the totem pole. But I wanted to bring it up because I do think he's like working his way into like, you know, the top 10 in most passing statistics. Like I said, he's what is he? I don't know if I did say this actually. He's 6th in overall EPA per drop back. And I think one thing that's really helped this offense is not running play action. Like obviously the lack of it in the first game was kind of a shock. Like they didn't even run a single rep of it and he barely moved off of his spot. But really, I think Kirk is always thought of as this play action heavy merchant, right? at this point in his career, it's better for him not to be running backwards to fake a handoff with his Achilles. And he's just seen so much football at this point that he's one of the better quarterbacks operating from spread, from empty, just picking the defense apart. And that's how the way that they're playing. They have like a league low play action percentage. And that's exactly where they should be, I think.
Another thing that I think has come through for these guys that I underestimated, Mooney has been very productive for them. And that's been huge because I think like one of the big things we didn't like about them was the receiver depth, because Mooney really hadn't been that great for a while, but he's having a very strong year. I think he leads them in receiving yards overall, but
is he ahead of Drake London? Because I feel like I'm so impressed with Drake London every time I watch him. Like,
playing really well.
I don't know.
But you could be right, because Mooney's having huge games.
He is by a little bit. But Mooney had a couple of really big games, and I'm sure put him ahead. And I'm not saying he's better than Drake London, obviously.
Right. He's having a great season. And when I was looking at my Justin Herbert MVP case the other day, I looked at PFF's charting for inaccurate passes, and Herbert was the second lowest in the league in terms of inaccurate passes. The lowest is Kirk Cousins, and that's pretty crazy considering just how much he's thrown the ball this year. He's at 267 attempts. Justin Herbert is at 225, or the Chargers offense is. So he's been dead on accurate. He can't move in the pocket, right? You cannot run any kind of zone read with him, but he's been accurate. He's been aggressive, and he's been playing really good football.
He's another one of these gunslinger quarterbacks that apparently doesn't exist anymore, but there actually is a lot of them. He's another guy to add to that list, no? Where it's like this guy, like we miss like quarterbacks who could just like go out there and throw the ball around and get it done. Like that's Kirk, man. He's aggressive. He's accurate. Like he's even more than that. Like he's actually like really good. Whereas like Flacco is like, okay, like
right.
Right.
This will be a deserved comeback player of the year, unlike Flacco's Mickey Mouse.
I think especially with the Cousins stuff, not only did he come back from an Achilles and he's like, balling like he was last year, but he was like not right at all week one, and he just turned it around mid-season. You got to give him a lot of credit for that. That shocked. As much as I want to say it's like Dobbins who deserves it because of how much he's been through, and you can still make the case because he's a running back and he tore his Achilles. That's a whole different animal.
I still think it should be Hamlin.
I think it should be Hamlin every single damn time is what
he's been like playing like decent football.
He has been. They robbed him last year. If he played at all last year, he would have won it. Right? Like
yes.
It's just that he was a special teamer, so they didn't give it to him. And like, he still came back from, dying on the field. No, I'm kidding. I'd give it to Cousins.
Hamlin this year he's got 2 picks.
Yeah, he's played every snap, I think.
5 passes defended, 57 tackles, 42 solo, 2 tackles for loss. Yeah,
he is 4th in odds right now. He is 4th in comeback player of the year odds tomorrow.
Who's ahead of him? Rodgers
and not even Rodgers from the numbers I'm looking at.
Hamlin is 4th in odds, or Cousins?
Hamlin is 4th in odds. Dobbins is 3rd. Burrow is 2nd. Cousins is 1st. From what I'm seeing.
If you're betting Damar Hamlin for comeback player of the year, call the number, dude. Oh my God.
Call the number.
That's just one of those things where they like put the odds up to make people think there's odds of it happening.
And then they see it and they're like, oh, what if? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I still have $10, or maybe it's $5 plus 10,000 odds Geno Smith to win MVP.
You need the greatest 8-game stretch in like quarterback history, pretty much, I think.
Hey, I still think there's a chance.
Another question you asked Theo was where their offense ranked at in the entirety of the league. I think it's like arguably top 5, right?
You know, that's a question that I wish I didn't ask, because the answer, I just go to the success rate numbers. It's like I don't really have like an offensive power ranking. I just kind of trust what the Ben Baldwin tier list says about where the offensive stack up, because it's got, you know, the Commanders and the Ravens at the Bills at the top, and it's got the Raiders and the Browns and the Panthers at the bottom. So it's like, all right, seems right. And they've got the Falcons at number 10. So
API, yeah.
You know, we'll just go with that, and maybe we can move on to the next question.
I think you could.
But guess what? If you remove week 1, they move up to 5th. So that's an important distinction.
That's actually insane.
They're very complete.
Insane.
They're very strong in a lot of areas. I think there's very few teams like that. I really do. Yeah, on offense, certainly. But I asked one more question, and that was having to do with the trade deadline. I was wondering if you guys think they should have traded for a pass rusher at the deadline, because they're still one of the worst pass rushers in the league. There were guys to go get for cheap, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, I said that the last time we talked about this. They're another team that should have been trying to trade for a pass rusher.
The problem is that the NFC is too open right now, like I said, and you're in such a good spot to win the division. It's like, do you want to be in a world where you're super weak at pass rusher and you actually like start going on a run and that costs you? I think for the price that some of these guys got traded for, like they could have been on a Zadarius Smith or on a Browning or whoever. And it's a little disappointing that they didn't, because their path right now, like they've decided to kind of be win now and aggressive, right? They went and signed a 36-year-old quarterback. Like they want to be good now. I don't think it's like the end of the world. I'm not going to like, you didn't sign Zadarius Smith, so like nuke the stadium or anything, but at the same time, it's a little disappointing. Like I really would have been aggressive. And I'm sure there's plenty of Falcons fans out there who are like a little bummed that they didn't.
I was thinking that it was kind of okay for them to not do it, just because they already kind of made a move for.
That is true. That is true.
Like,
that's a good point.
Are you going to sink 2 draft picks into bringing in?
That is also a sunk cost fallacy, though.
It is, and there's no reason why you can't trade another pick for an edge rusher, right? The fact that you did it before, but still, I wasn't quite as upset about it. I was like, I get it. You know, they drafted Braylon Trice. He tore his ACL. He's going to be back next year, hopefully. And then you give up a pick immediately for Judon. Like they made a pick on Ruka Rororo and early in the second round. So I thought they had invested enough in kind of defensive line this offseason. It just kind of didn't come to fruition in terms of output. And maybe that means you make another trade. And like, surely one more trade will fix it. But at the same time, I was like, I'm kind of fine with them living with the results. They were very aggressive this offseason, signing Justin Simmons as well right before the season started. So maybe not very aggressive overall. They were very aggressive like in training camp, adding to their roster. So,
bro, Dak pulled his hammy off the bone.
That sounds disgusting.
Shout out my fucking goat anyway, bro. My fantasy team is cooked, but we wouldn't want to win without Dak. That's my boy. I don't care. I don't care if the Cowboys offense is horseshit. Not Dak's fault, and I'm like not kidding.
It's never the good quarterback's fault, man. It's just a bit of a blanket statement. Just any quarterback who's good, it's not their fault.
I'm cooking up a vision right now.
It better not be Deshaun Watson prop.
1-for-1, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott. Tell me Jerry Jones wouldn't say yes.
He wouldn't say yes.
You don't know that, though.
He might say, well, yeah, that's a mighty fine player you got, and I would like to maybe do a little business. But we just signed Dak to a big contract, but I guess hasn't really worked out for us, so you got yourself a deal, young man.
See?
That is what he would say. I agree.
That's exactly what he would say.
That's almost exactly. Here's the thing. Here's my problem. I honestly, I'm blanking on what Jerry Jones sounds like right now.
It just sounds like this. Yeah, scribble a little bit.
So I can't grade your impression. I don't think he would quite think about doing that though. I think he would probably say, "No, I love Dak. No, Dak is wonderful."
And then McCarthy would
That's
say,
what I would say.
I can't do it, McCarthy.
We'll do this. We'll do Dak and CeeDee Lamb for Deshaun Watson and Jerry Jeudy.
It's not Madden.
Sweetening the pot a little bit, I see. All I know about a McCarthy impression is that you got to smack your lips a lot. Like you got to be like, well, I didn't look at any of the tape really, but I said that I did, and it got me the job. And I thought it was a pretty neat strategy by me. I don't know. I'm
Okay, can I ruin the end of this?
bombing.
This
I already did.
First off, you're not bombing. I'm just like.
I
No.
already ruined the beginning, middle, and end of this.
Okay. This episode fucking sucks because of me. It's all right. It's cool, Matthew. Do whatever. Okay, well then let me ruin it even more. Do you guys know the one sound on TikTok? This is from years ago, where they were like doing an impression of the Nets commentators back when they had like Kevin Durant.
Oh yeah, Kevin Durant.
That is my go-to. Thinking every time I shoot anything, Kevin Durant with the ball. Like I think about that every single time. That's easily the biggest impact TikTok has had on my whole life.
Dude, the one that killed me was he said "sham it," and then he was on the Suns for a while. Sham it, just every time. You're totally right that sound was living.
With the ball. With the ball. Dude, I love that, dude. It kills me every time.
There goes Kyrie. Sham it.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, you did get it, and that ended up being a perfectly nice little 1 minute. And you got to... And
speaking of the NBA, I saw during the course of this episode a sleeper notification pop up on my phone. Brandon Miller's game-winning shot over the Pistons.
Let's go, dude.
Pistons vanquished. Cammy is off screen.
Brandon Miller, I apologize, Bretta. On me.
Cammy has Brandon Miller on her fantasy team.
Oh, it was a good pick. He needs to be healthy.
We got some Carson
glute game one.
We got some Carson assistants on her fantasy team, so I think she's kicking ass right now. We got Jalen Duren and Johnson from the Hawks and Brandon Miller. It's a good squad. And Jason Taylor.
Yeah. And Miller's had great
and Cam Johnson.
Shout out, and I'm wearing the Hornets while it happened. Let's go. Shout out Brandon Miller. He's been really, really good. He's been a lot better than I thought he'd be. And I'm sorry.
Right.
Well, also shout out the Miami Redhawks. Election night might not have gone how he wanted, but the Redhawks won that night. Beat Ball State. Brett Gabbert threw 3 tutties, no picks. They're on a roll right now.
Brett Gabbert too. I'm sorry, we probably don't need the Brett Gabbert segment. I feel like he's been
the Brett Gabbert segment. You don't want to do the Brett Gabbert segment, man?
No.
Brett Gabbert, future Cleveland Browns legend. You can clock it right now. But I think that's about it for another episode of Stay Hot. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode. We'll be back to recap. Oh, no. Oh, I almost forgot. We've forgotten this before, the locks.
Oh fuck it. We'll put a graphic out on Twitter.
Real quick.
Okay, we'll speed run this.
We will speed run the locks. Hold on, let me pull up last week's.
I don't even care how I win last. I won, you won.
Yeah, last week I locked the Ravens, Eagles, and Bengals. I won. I now have 8 points. Theo, you locked the Commanders, Bills, and Cardinals. You won. You now have 11 points. Matt, you locked the Saints and Chiefs. Saints lost. So you still have 7 points.
Womp womp.
Theo, do you want the first pick? Second pick of the turn.
I'll take the first pick, and I'll go with I'll go with the Eagles over the Cowboys. Fuck it. Maybe that's dumb in the NFC East, but Cooper Rush.
Playing Cooper Rush. Yeah, you're cool.
Trey Lance is breaking my heart, but
Trey Lance is breaking your heart. Okay, so I guess either I get the second pick or I get the turn. I will take The this is tough. I guess I'll take the Chiefs. I guess I'll take the
Someone's
Chiefs
listening
over
in their car. Well. I like.
I guess I'll take the Chiefs over the Broncos.
We gotta come locked in for the Stay Hot Lock.
Oh my God.
You,
Your pick-
you didn't take the turn. Why don't you guys love the turn, bro? Hold on.
You just started
give
loving the
me-
turn last episode.
Yeah, I wised up. Hey, but stay on that side. It's cool.
You're also last,
You know what?
so whatever. And you lost last week, but I'll
I'm
let you
due.
make your pick.
I'm due. Give me the Giants over the Panthers. Reverse jinx my own
What?
team. We can go on a run. 6.5 point spread. One of my best options. Points, by the way. Plus, someone's going to. Yep. Plus, someone's going to see it out of context on Twitter, and then they're going to be like, "What the fuck is wrong with him?" And that's worth it. And then what else can I get? Just playing the spreads. Give me the Chargers over Tennessee, 7.5.
All right.
That's good.
That brings it back to me.
That's like the two biggest spreads I could have picked as well. So
yeah. No, I don't think you're wrong for that.
logic locked in.
Give me the Vikings over the Jags. Risky pick here, but the Jags stink.
Hitting the Kevin Durant with the bucket smack before they stay hot.
You know what? I'm going to be. It's a good week to be conservative, so I'm going to stay at 1.
Now Theo's gonna take every other game available, and that'll do it.
I'm going to stay at 1.
I'll stay at 2.
Maybe the Falcons. No, I'll stay at 1.
No,
I already
Theo,
got my
come on.
conservative. I got my conservative joke off, so I'm going to stand pat.
All right. Matt, do you want to take another?
Nope.
Okay, so those are the Stay Hot locks. Week 10, I have 8 points. I'm locking the Chiefs and Vikings. Theo has 11 points, locking the Eagles. And Matt has 7 points, locking the Giants and the Chargers. And that'll do it for another episode of Stay Hot. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And until next time, when we recap Week 10 of the NFL season, we will catch you on the flippity flop.